Yes, it is. It's okay. Delete it. I don't know. Yeah. Do what? Yeah. There's no way to do it that quickly. Computer. 6:05 Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane, off and running. Brian here with you. Jake Barty producing. Good morning, everybody. We got a lot of ground to cover on this Tuesday morning. All right, so the show normally starts at 6:06. You might be asking yourself, why 6:05? It's because we had to blast out our traffic report. A little bit of a computer issue. Not to worry, I'm going to go ahead and cover that for you right now. We are looking at multiple accidents on the interstate right now, causing major delays. In fact, as of right now, there are 4 accidents on the interstate. The first of which, and this is moving west to east, there's an accident I-10 westbound at South Acadian. There's an accident I-10 eastbound at College Drive. That's not causing a whole lot of delay. The 10 westbound at South Acadian, however, is. There's also an accident. What was this one? Boop, 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 boop. I-12 westbound at just before the 10-12 split, in between Jefferson and the 10-12 split. And then one more. This one's I-10 westbound at Essen Lane. We are seeing huge delays on the interstate to start off the morning. A lot of backups on the interstate to start off the morning. It starts all the way, if you're heading westbound on the interstate, the backups start around South Acadian Thruway. They back up beyond the 10-12 split. On the 12 side, it goes all the way back to, gosh, is that all the way back to? Oh, I'm sorry. This is not all the way back to Airline. I was looking, man, is that Airline? No, it goes back to before Jefferson Highway. On the 10 side, the delays run back to just before Essen Lane. So, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's not the worst traffic you've seen in Baton Rouge. But for 6:07 in the morning, that is pretty unusual for this time of morning. We will have our next traffic report at 6:14. Ashley Frugier will have the latest for you, and we will have traffic for you throughout the morning. Oh, hey, programming note. If you don't yet subscribe on YouTube, today is probably the best day to do it. Or even if you're not on YouTube, today would be a good day to get over there. We're going to lose power at 8 a.m.-ish. Sometime in the 8 o'clock hour, they're going to pull the station down. We're going to be doing some tower work this morning And in order for that to happen, they can't have the tower on and in it at the same time or climbing up it at the same time. So at 8 a.m., Talk 107.3 FM will be down. Now, I tell you every day about downloading the all-new Talk 107.3 mobile app. Perfect time to do that because we will still be streaming live at talk1073.com, on the Talk 107.3 mobile app, and via our YouTube channel. Now, you can watch us on YouTube. Just go to Mornings with Brian Haldane on YouTube. You can watch us there if you want. But if you would like to interact, you got to subscribe so that we know who you are when you post and can respond accordingly. That's coming up at 8 a.m. That being said, Congressman Troy Carter is going to join us at 8:35. Before that, we've got a lot of ground to cover as well. Dr. Sean Wilson at 6:50. News of the infrastructure package passing had to be quite the welcome news to Dr. Wilson, who heads up DOTD. He's going to join us at 6:52 to talk about what projects are going to be up first and what we should expect to see timeline-wise now that this is passed. That's at 6:52. 7:15, Jason DeCuir is going to join us. We've been talking a lot about Amendments 1 and 2 on the ballot this weekend. That will continue with Jason. I want to get his latest on, is there opposition to this? What are we looking at before Saturday? Obviously, a lot of folks want to see this move forward. We've seen op-eds penned in the paper. We've heard from a number of different officials who are on board. What's it going to take to make sure this gets done? And this whole campaign that started well back during the legislative session, passed by the legislature, signed off on by the governor, now it's on the ballot this Saturday. How do you finish strong and make sure that so much work that's already been done does not fall to the wayside? 7:35, Baton Rouge Police Chief Murphy Paul will join us. Got a lot to talk about there as well. Last week, Mayor President Sharon Weston Broome announced $73 million in American Rescue Plan funding coming to Baton Rouge and how it will be distributed. Baton Rouge Police is getting a pretty decent chunk of that. What are they using it for? Fleet upgrades, to be sure, but what else? And saw an interesting article in The Advocate about fentanyl hotspots. There's been a number of arrests in not just within Baton Rouge city limits, but in East Baton Rouge Parish. A number of arrests very recently where a ton of fentanyl has been found as part of the arrest. Is this part of an overall concerted effort, and will we start seeing a turning of the tide, or at least an evening out, when it comes to the momentum in where we're at with opioid deaths as related to fentanyl? Plus top stories and trending, plus the outside in, plus we'll have Jake will have this day in history and a whole lot more coming your way. In fact, after we take a quick break and we do check traffic, Ashley Frugier will have your traffic in just a couple minutes. After we take a quick break and check traffic, we'll dive into some sports. Ed Ogeron was at the podium yesterday. His Monday morning press conference as LSU preps for Arkansas. We'll hear a little bit from him next on Talk 107.3. Muso's folder from yesterday. Yeah. Yeah. Let quarterback dynamic. Okay, let's do those first three. For now, yeah. You said quarterback? Yeah. What else is there? Okay. Hang on. Okay. All right, we'll do those first three, and then he's got an Arkansas preview, you said? All right, let's do that. Yeah. Ooh, excuse me, y'all. That was rude. It is. So we do not have CBS at 8:15. All right. I got to get them all in before 8, though. I'm not clearing those just on YouTube. Okay. All right. That's fine. That's fine. We're going to push those up just to make sure they all get in for the full air broadcast. Yeah. In the order I call for them. It's going to go 1, 2, 5, 6, 3. Y'all, YouTube, I apologize. It's going to be a minute before I get over there this morning. I got to make sure that we actually have traffic first. And then I can close out my traffic on my phone. I would have traffic on my computer, but I don't have a computer this morning. I didn't hear traffic. Did you hear traffic? All right. 616 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Once again, we are looking at major interstate delays this morning as a result of 4 different accidents on the interstate, and now we're starting to see some surface street accidents pop up as well. There's a brand new accident at Corporate Boulevard at College Drive. We're looking at delays on I-10 westbound from just before the Acadian Thruway exit. Why say that? You know that overpass that goes over the interstate in between College and Acadian, Nairn Drive, I believe it is. That's where the accident's actually at. So delays on 10 westbound start there, and they back up all the way to before the 10-12 split. And honestly, it's getting a lot thicker on I-12 right now. 10 is going to continue to stack up, starting at around Essen Lane. 12 is also around Essen Lane, actually, where it starts to back up as well. So give yourself a little buffer time this morning. Or find an alternate route. If you normally take the interstate, you might want to think about a different way into work this morning. Ed Ogeron was at the podium yesterday, as he is every single Monday during football season. Well, sans the bye week. No, he had a press conference during the bye week this year. That's weird. Anyway, he started off by recapping the loss to Alabama, and, well, here he is.
I really felt we were a better team that night, and I still feel that way after watching the film. Just a couple plays short. Like I said in my press conference after, I wish we could have put our offense in better position to make some plays, especially on the 8-yard line down there. We had a chance to score.
Yeah. I know yesterday I talked a lot about how I just really enjoyed the ride, and I did. A lot of LSU fans did. But, man, going from the 8-yard line, you're looking back on it, if they'd kicked a field goal there, they were in field goal position again, which would have tied things up and sending it to overtime. And the thought of going to overtime against this Alabama team is just bonkers. Anyway, defensively, LSU looked better than they have in a long, long time. I mean, a really long time. Ogeron commented on the defense.
Really proud of our defense. For our defense to hold them to 26 points below their season average. First time in 34 games they didn't score 30 points. Dominated the run. Think about this, 6 yards rushing, tied for the lowest rushing yards in school history. And they've had some great football teams here that have gone there. And that's you got to give the credit to our players and give the credit to our defensive coaches for holding them to 6 yards rushing. I thought that was a phenomenal deal and shows that we are physically tough here at LSU. 4 of 13 on third down, 30%. They were first in the country. I just thought our defense whooped their offensive butt. I thought they did a great job. And Damone Clark and Neil Farrell played an outstanding job. But give the credit to our coaches. They fought hard.
Interestingly enough, Alabama dropped a spot in the polls. In the AP poll. The college football poll will be out later on this week. But in the AP poll, it's Georgia number 1, Cincinnati number 2, Alabama number 3. Now, Cincinnati's lower when it comes to the playoff ranking. We'll get to that later on in the week. I'm looking up at the clock. I don't have enough time to get into it. We're going to take a quick break here, check in on the Fox Business Report. When we come back from the Fox Business Report, of course, we'll check traffic again as we're looking at delays on the interstate this morning, early delays on the interstate this morning. But looking ahead to Arkansas as well. That's going to be coming up next. So we'll head back to the Editors Room press conference after this. Take a quick break. Let's check Fox Business. Let's check traffic, and then we're right back at it on Talk 107.3 FM. All right, across the hall. I'll be right back. Morning, Christy. Welcome in, sweetheart. What's happening, boo? All right, I'm going to open up YouTube. Boop it up. Morning, Renee. Morning, Clinton, Tiffany, Eric, Byron, Galen. What's happening, y'all? Oh, thank y'all so much. I appreciate it greatly. Hey, anybody going over the PMAC today? Little school field trip special going on at the PMAC today for LSU women's basketball, which is kind of why we're losing our third hour. We want to make sure we're back on the air for basketball. which makes sense. There's other outlets for the show when it comes to the stream, when it comes to YouTube, when it comes to the app. On Air is the only place we can clear NCAA sports. All right. Yeah. No, I'm going back to the press conference. Did you close everything out? I'll knock out my live read first. 624, Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. As I said, we were heading into break. We're going to go back to the press conference here in just a second. We are, but I got to tell you about the folks over at Complete Collision Center first. 2 locations, one on Plank Road in Zachary, one on Perkins just east of Bluebonnet here in Baton Rouge. 19511 Plank Road and 9848 Perkins Road are the actual addresses. The phone number, and this is important, you need this one, 768-9898, 768-9898. Doug and his team over at Complete Collision Center pride themselves on continuing education and knowledge. Those 2 things lead to certifications, which means you are going to be taken care of from start to finish when it comes back to getting your family on the road safely. They're certified by more than a dozen major car manufacturers. I love reading this list. It just rattles off. Boom, 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 boom. Ford, Honda, Acura, Nissan, Infiniti, Hyundai, Kia, Fiat, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram. And if those don't fit the need, they've also got the iCar Gold Class certification, which puts them in the top 15% of body shops nationwide. You can learn more at CompleteCollision.com, CompleteCollision.com. Like I said, 768-9898 is the phone number. They will pick up that battle you're going to have with your insurance company and carry it on for you and then get you back on the road safely. Don't let who you choose to repair your vehicle be your second accident. Check out CompleteCollision.com. Ed Ogeron yesterday previewed this coming week as LSU will be taking on Arkansas. What can we expect from the Razorbacks offense?
He's a spread on offense. The offensive line is very well coached. Big quarterback that's going to run the ball, hurry up offense, led by Traylon Burks. I recruited Traylon, a great basketball player, a great young man. I feel like he's one of the best players on the team, one of the best players in the SEC.
And defensively, what should we expect from Arkansas?
On defense, their coach is a great coach, 3-2-5, 3-2-6 scheme with 5 returning starters, 24 points per game. They're very multiple. Trey Williams, defensive end, 55, leads them in sacks. Monteric Brown and Grant Morgan, outstanding players. This is a very well-coached team, a hard-playing team.
One more from Ed Ogeron yesterday, and we might dive into this later on in the show, is that Max Johnson did not play that well on Saturday. Still within, he's not a freshman, but still making freshman mistakes. He's still within the realm of what you would have for a first season. He only played 2 games last year. So a lot of folks are grading him on a curve, though nobody else gets graded on a curve. But a lot of folks are grading him on a curve. But nonetheless, there is a freshman quarterback that is kind of breathing down his throat and will get some snaps during practice this week, and we'll see some playing time this weekend.
This week we're going to let Max start, but we're going to put in Garrett. Garrett's going to get some plays. I already talked to him, and we're going to let the best man win. And, it's time to let Garrett play. He's a great quarterback. I like Max a lot. Max is still our starting quarterback, but I will give Garrett a chance. I talked to him. He wants to play, so he will play against Arkansas. And the guy that ends up playing the best is going to play the most.
It's an interesting spot to be in for a number of reasons. Number one, everybody's trying to do the red shirt math, right? You're allowed to play in 4 games and still keep your red shirt. Garrett Nussmeier's got 1 more to go before having to burn his red shirt. But honestly, who the heck cares about a red shirt? Think about it. If you're Gary Nussmeier, do you care about a red shirt? Your thought process follows one of three paths here. Red shirts for quarterbacks they don't really matter right now. It takes a rare situation for it to matter. But if you're Nussmeier, you're thinking either I'm not going to be here long enough to use it. Like, if I don't prove myself in 3 years to make it to the NFL, then I'm not making it to the NFL. Either that or I'm transferring somewhere else for my last year. And the third possibility here is if I'm not good enough by the time I'm out there, by the time my red shirt would kick back in and run out of time, I'll be passed up by the guys who were recruited after me. Nonetheless, Nussmeier's got one more game within that red shirt math, as it were. Hey, programming note again. 8 o'clock this morning, we're going to lose power on air, so it's going to be a good morning to check us out on the stream at talk1073.com, on the website, the all-new Talk 1073 mobile app, or on YouTube. We are on YouTube live every morning. Just look up Mornings with Brian Haldane. Please subscribe, and you get a heck of a lot more show in between breaks and whatnot because there are no breaks on YouTube. It's just a straight stream throughout. Hey, have you gotten all your business done with FEMA? If not, they did put out a few advisories yesterday. Number one, they will be open on Veterans Day with one exception. The only, and this doesn't really apply to our listening audience, the only FEMA location, the FEMA Disaster Recovery Center, that's not going to be open on Veterans Day is the Ilario Center in West Wego. Not really bothersome to our listening audience, but down the road. All other centers will observe regular hours on Veterans Day and provide regular services to help survivors with their FEMA applications, upload documents, and get their questions and federal disaster assistance answered. While we're talking about FEMA, they did also update everyone yesterday, reminding folks that you need a mask when you visit a FEMA disaster recovery center. When you visit them, you'll need to mask up. Under federal COVID-19 safety rules, all visitors, volunteers, and employees at federal facilities must wear masks regardless of their vaccination status. So the F in FEMA does stand for federal, which means you got to mask up. Here comes CBS News. Do what? Yeah. Thank you, Colton. I appreciate that, man. Can I get somebody about... Nothing on GE for me. Morning, T-Bob. Stupid. Oh, Byron, happy belated birthday, man. November 8th. Did not know. Gotcha. No, yeah. I appreciate it. Keep them coming. They stacked everything in the 8 o'clock hour today. The one day where they don't stack everything in the 6 o'clock hour.
That's too easy.
Oh, shit. All right. Oh. And it would be on a Tuesday where I know I'm stacked up with all of them. So. We didn't give away our October staycations yet. I was supposed to do that yesterday, but Cade was out, and I haven't learned how to do it yet. So, yeah, Cade wasn't feeling well. Today should be. But I'm not going to be in house long enough. I need him to do it for me this month. Mm. 638 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. Hey, Talk 107.3 is giving you a chance to enjoy a true Louisiana staycation on us at either the Renaissance or Watermark Hotels. Simply take our staycation survey at talk1073.com. You will be instantly registered for one of two staycations. We give away two a month. One on this show, one on the Jada Cody show. The Watermark, you get a one-night stay with valet and dinner for two at the Gregory. With the Renaissance, you get a one-night stay and breakfast for two which you also get dinner for two at Tallulah. It's a staycation with the Watermark and Renaissance Hotels and Talk 107.3, the new flavor of talk. So, coming up next hour, we'll have, coming up in our next segment, we're going to talk with Dr. Sean Wilson from DOTD. Friday night, the infrastructure package cleared the goal line, cleared the finish line. It is on the president's desk. That's going to mean a nice little influx of money for Louisiana's Department of Transportation. That's going to mean roads. That's going to mean bridges. What kind of timelines are we looking at? What kind of projects are going to be up first? We're going to talk with Dr. Sean Wilson in our next segment. Right now, though, I want to revisit something you just heard in news at the bottom of the hour. Lawmakers questioning health officials about some of the potential adverse reactions to the COVID vaccine. Things that have been reported to the state during a health and wellness committee. This all went down yesterday. State epidemiologist Teresa Sokol says so far 122 events have been reported in Louisiana via the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, or VAERS, as they're calling it. 122 events so far is what's been reported.
That we have investigated as possible severe adverse events that might be related to the vaccine. Among those, only 11 have met the criteria that we established.
122 events, 11 have met the criteria they've established. Now, there have been more than 4.5 million total doses of the COVID vaccine that have been administered in Louisiana. So from a numbers perspective, 122 quote-unquote events so far is just minuscule when it comes to a percentage. It's barely quantifiable. Sokol says to date the state has not reported any deaths from the COVID vaccine, and of the adverse effects, they are typically anaphylactic reaction to the vaccine that requires hospitalization. A reaction, she says, almost if you're going to see it, you're going to see it immediately, is the long and the short of where she's going with any reactions. It's either, if you've had the shot, you know how it rolls. You take the shot, you go sit down for 15 minutes, and then they send you on your merry way. Come back 3 weeks later, rinse, repeat. Sokol says they also look at cases of myocarditis, which is an inflammation of the heart that's been associated with the vaccine as well.
And also, as well, the sort of blood disorder, the thrombosis with thrombocytopenia. So those are included in our case definition.
The myocarditis thing is interesting to me because those in charge, not saying within our state, but as we were going through it, leading up to the 2020 football season, we were all made to be scared to death of myocarditis as if every third person was going to have it and drop dead from it. Well, it just never panned out that way. The instances of myocarditis, especially myocarditis that was going to be threatening to your health, it didn't pan out to be nearly the fear that we were given from the start. So I'm curious to see if the vaccine is causing it in any way, shape, or form on the same level of the fear that we were given from the actual COVID causing myocarditis. Honestly, I heard a lot more about myocarditis on our sports station than I did over here. It was Big Ten almost didn't play football last year because of myocarditis. Like, everyone was scared that players were just going to be dropping dead in the middle of games. Guillain-Barré, an autoimmune disorder that can cause muscle weakness and sometimes paralysis, has also been associated with the vaccine. And I appreciate my news partners at LRN for giving me a proper pronunciation of that. Representative Kenny Cox of Natchitoches asked State Health Officer Dr. Joseph Cantor about the number of events reported because his physicians want to see if there's a possibility that's impacted his own health as well.
We've had one case of Guillain-Barré that has met our criteria for vaccine-related severe adverse event.
Yeah, only one case. Yeah, because I'm going to be tested.
Okay. One of the things about the vaccination, the health concerns with the vaccinations, I don't want to trivialize them, but I do want to keep in mind that if you're going to play the numbers game on the COVID side, you have to play the same numbers game on the vaccination side, don't you? For 2,549,584 doses of the vaccine have been given out. Total doses. That includes, it's doubling up on a lot of folks, which probably skews the numbers a little bit. Because if I didn't have any adverse effects from the first dose, I'm likely not going to have adverse effects from the second dose. So if you want to say 2.2 million, 2,221,353 people have completed their vaccination series in the state. Even then, 122 total events. We should be at a point now where, and oh, by the way, it's November. We are almost to a full year of the introduction of the vaccine. Not a full year for where all of us could get to it. I mean, hell, 5 to 11-year-olds was just last week, right? We're not to a full year to where all of us could get to it, but we are almost to a full year where it was available to senior citizens, those with comorbidities. We're almost to a full year worth of, I hate to use this phrase, real life research, where it's been out there, where it's been in the market. I mean, well, I got mine. When did I get mine? I got my first shot on March 20th. March 30th of this year. That's what? We're in the 11th month now. That was the 3rd month, so that's 8 months ago for me. And I wasn't in a rush to go get it. I wasn't avoiding it, but I wasn't in a rush to go get it either. But even still, a lot of folks are to the point now where they're a full year in, or will be very soon, I should say. So-called, by the way, says the cases nationally that have been noted, the onset of symptoms of Guillain-Barré is typically within 2 weeks of vaccination. VAERS, by the way, was established back in 1990, and anyone can report reactions, not just a healthcare provider, but to the overall system as well. So, still a lot of hesitation. All right, we're going to take a quick break here in just a minute. After the break, we're going to talk transportation. We're going to talk roads and bridges. We're going to talk with Dr. Sean Wilson from DOTD. Hey, before we take that break, though, I want to remind you about the folks over at Baton Rouge Physical Therapy. They've been around, y'all. They introduced physical therapy to Baton Rouge 60-plus years ago. They've got 6 locations throughout the greater Baton Rouge area. Now, normally you associate physical therapy with recovering from a major accident or injury. Doesn't have to be. Doesn't have to be. This could just be the everyday life stuff that is built up over a lifetime and needs relief. You wake up with lower back pain, you wake up with neck pain, you wake up with a tweak in the knee, whatever the case is, 917-9185 is the number you're going to call for a free screening. Talk with someone about it. Find out if physical therapy is right for you. 917-9185 or visit brptlake.com. They've got 6 locations throughout the greater Baton Rouge area. brptlake.com to find out which location would be right for you. Get back to being your best. Think physical therapy and BRPT Lake. The person who schedules that was out yesterday because... So, I'm just going to do them anyway. I'm just going to do one per segment until 8 o'clock. And then I'm probably just going to bonus everybody a freebie or whoever I get to in the 8 o'clock hour. Bro, Jack Strain. He gonna go to prison for 3 lifetimes. Thank you, Christian. That's right, Clinton. Happy birthday to you, man. Byron says the fear of myocarditis was driven by news outlets trying to create a story, wasn't driven by government officials. Bro, I disagree with that. Simply because those news outlets had sound bites to report on, and those sound bites were coming from government officials. And outside of the Big Ten, in the SEC, we heard Dr. Katie O'Neill, like, on a loop. Myocarditis. And I agree that the media was feeding the frenzy and feeding the hype, chum in the water for sure. But those buckets full of chum had to come from somewhere. So that's because the media's in cahoots, man. How does St. Paul's get a 5 seed? We suck. Do what? Yeah, he's good. If we're a 5 seed, that means we're going up against a 4. That means we're probably if we win the first round, we're gonna play Catholic in the second round, and Catholic's gonna kick our ass, and I'm gonna have to hear about it. Okay. It's a shame the media didn't report very well on how much more likely you are to get it with COVID. Did Sean Payton play? Okay. Clinton says, welcome to 27 state tournaments. I know. We went 5-5 my junior year and still made the playoffs, and this was before there was a million tournaments. No, we did make the playoffs at 5-5. We went 6-4 my senior year and then we won a playoff game in the Dome. And then got annihilated by Curtis. 6:52, Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. So, aside from Senator Cassidy, who was part of the bipartisan team that put this legislation together, about the happiest person around when it comes to infrastructure package making its way through would be Dr. Sean Wilson, who heads up DOTD in the state. How are you, sir? Good morning.
I am well, Brian. Good morning to you and your listeners.
I assume you've just been on Cloud 9 since Friday night because this is an influx of dollars that is very, very badly needed.
Well, I am on Cloud 9, and I think many folks around the state will be as well when these dollars actually get put into motion, because it's going to fund critical projects that we've all talked about for decades. And this bill could have been passed, should have been passed a while back, but it is passed now. And I am just very grateful that Senator Cassidy and Representative Carter, both who voted for these pieces of legislation when it came to their chamber, representing Louisiana. And I believe this is good for our state in terms of the formula investment, the unprecedented formula investment. and it's good for our state in terms of the competitive dollars that are going to be out there. And again, because those two individuals did what they did, we're going to rely heavily on them as much as possible to be very competitive for those dollars as well.
Well, I assume now that it's passed, you're going to see everybody on board for the competitive dollars, although I'm not. I'm a little more hesitant for that, just for other political reasons. But nonetheless,
well, I agree with you. But I think this is going to fund projects that everybody has talked about.
Yes,
that everybody wants, and I think it's the right thing to put politics aside and push these projects forward. And so we're willing to do that. I think it's just important to recognize where this came from and the responsible leadership that we've seen to help make this happen within the bipartisan group of elected officials, House and Senate, from across the country that did it. And we've got two of those individuals in our state.
Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely. The bipartisan group that wrote this thing, I mean, Senator Cassidy put his you-know-whats out there for this. It would have been very easy just to say, we've already spent trillions upon trillions upon trillions because of the pandemic. Let's just hold off for now till we see what the bank account looks like. That would have been a very easy move. But
that would have been an easy move.
He opted to go otherwise.
Our citizens need to understand that when you get into the details of what this is and what this is about, our funding had expired. The federal government shut down for transportation. And over 50% of my budget comes from the federal government. Yeah. And it's responsible to ensure that that money stays there. And not only are we seeing the $4.8 billion of highway funding that had expired, remember, expired meaning disappeared.
Yeah.
It had disappeared. We're getting an additional $1 billion for bridge repair. That is a significant factor because over $3 billion of our $14 billion backlog is in bridges. I mean, go figure. We need this investment, and it's huge.
It absolutely is. So let's talk numbers. How much is coming to the state as a result of this bill?
All right. Certainly. So over the next 5 years, we're going to see a minimum of $4.8 billion spent on highways. You're going to see an additional $1 billion spent on bridges across the state. Over $470 million is going to go to public transit. There's a new program that's going to provide $73 million for electric vehicle charging so that you can have cross-country connectivity to build that infrastructure. Our airports, we've got 69 airports in 64 parishes. $170 million are going to be allocated to those Louisiana airports. Resilience. This is a new program. We know we need to elevate roads. We know we've got flooding issues. We're going to spend $20 million for resilient work. There's so much more because Louisiana is not just going to benefit from infrastructure. You have millions of dollars being spent on broadband. You have millions of dollars that are coming to Louisiana because of the recurring storms that only we are eligible for, not tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. And then there's this opportunity for competitive grants. We're going to see over $25 billion, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have my paperwork in front of me, but over $25 billion allocated to discretionary competitions. That means we can now be more aggressive at achieving and applying for grants through the federal government at U.S. Department of Transportation. We've received 5 of those major grants. Last year, we received, or year before last, the largest grant in the country. We know how to be successful in this realm. We've got needs and projects that we can ask for, and we intend to do just that. And so we're going to call on our legislature to provide the necessary match to receive all these formula dollars and to be competitive and go out for discretionary dollars to demonstrate our own commitments to Louisiana.
Okay, we got about 2.5 minutes left. There's 2 things I want to touch on specifically. First of all, and I realize it's going to cover our range, how much does it cost to build a bridge? If we're getting $1 billion over 5 years, how much does it cost to build a bridge?
You're looking at close to $1 billion.
Okay. For like, let's say a new Mississippi River bridge.
You're looking at close to $1 billion.
Oh, okay.
And look, and this is all relative because we have to build the network to lead to it. You've got to build that actual infrastructure. And bridges are not cheap, particularly when you have massive bodies of water like we do, when you're looking at the price of steel and other inflationary factors as a result of the pandemic.
Yes.
And, of course, the delay getting to this point. So, you're looking at $600, $700, $800 million for the bridge. You're looking at another $200 million for approaches. you're going to be getting to $1 billion before this project is completed.
$20 million for the resiliency projects. That is of the utmost importance to Louisiana's transportation and economy. Do we have a priority list on what comes first with that?
Well, let me just tell you this. We're only spending about $3 million a year right now on elevating roads. And so we do have a priority list. We have the Highway Priority Program. We know where those roads that are repeat flooding conditions are. We've got some over in West Baton Rouge right now. We've got a project on LA 70 coming out. There are going to be others when you go down to South Louisiana, down in Terrebonne and Lafouche, and Jefferson Parish and Lafitte, where we know we have repeat flooding. We've got those roads right there in Baton Rouge. So we do have a priority of how they're going to be allocated. But this $20 million will go a long way. We're going to have to match it and make a commitment from our perspective for resilience, and we're committed to doing that.
He is Dr. Sean Wilson. He heads up DOTD in the state. We're going to get you on pretty regularly to talk about some of these priorities and get into the nuts and bolts of them individually along the way, but we are straight up out of time for right now. I appreciate you hopping on this morning, sir.
Thank you. Have a good one. Take
you
care.
too.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye. Got CBS News coming your way right now. I didn't have enough time to recap any of that. Damn it. Damn it. I should have told him ahead of time. I'm going to talk to somebody else about the broadband and all the other stuff. I just wanted to do his stuff. I feel like I just got filibustered. Galen, you're confusing the two bills. This wasn't the social engineering bill. That's a different bill. Oh, good deal. Chief Paul will be in studio this morning. Yeah, it's time to turn towards the reconciliation bill and all hands on deck to shut that bleeping thing down. The reconciliation bill is where you see all that human infrastructure crap. Look, there's a lot of the electric car stuff just gives me the red ass. It's a lot of money being spent on something that there's no long-term foresight for. It's just a matter of, hey, man, more people are going to have these tomorrow than they do today, so let's put a lot of money into it. And it's a lot of green energy stuff as well, but this is one of those ones where I'm willing to step into the pitch on that to get on base for the rest. I can't steal second when it comes to building a new bridge unless I'm already on first. So, and that's the whole point of a compromise, right? Everyone's a little bit unhappy. But that was why Congressman Higgins voted no on this, for the exact same reason you were saying right there. And he's one of the 435 in the room. And there's still a level of confusion as to if you had the one, you were going to get the other. The two were tied at the hip. And this was what Senator Cassidy talked about on this show regularly was, no, they're still separate, and we can still work to keep them separate. You could say yes to this, but no to that. And I think if we can get to a point where everybody actually says no to the other one, then we'll all be able to breathe a sigh of relief that, yes, we're spending $1.2 trillion, and that's better than $5.1 trillion. Because it's on the heels of like $9 trillion already spent as a result of the pandemic. $9 trillion that we're going to owe to China, who gave us the pandemic. Do not pay attention to those conspiracy theories. Or do. The electric charging stations are a great example of crony capitalism. Yes, but I would add a 1B to that and say they're also just part of the agenda. That it's like a green idealism that's just not going to be there. How long will we be able to blame this inflation on the pandemic? I can't set an over-under for you on that one. I'm going to say until there's a Republican back in the White House, then we can blame everything on him again. What a great to just have a scapegoat for 4 years. Everything was Donald Trump's fault. Yeah. Thank you. I did not have time to get to anything because of. Well, Will Sutton wrote an op-ed in the paper, about the census being off in Louisiana. He doesn't follow me, so I couldn't DM him on Twitter. So I just responded publicly. Would love to get you on my show to talk about this. He liked the reply. Bro, follow me back and DM me. I want to get you on. Oh, cool. Somebody at Livingston Parish spotted SpaceX Monday night. So damn aliens, what that is. Not a conspiracy theory. It did come from... No, but intent was the conspiracy theory. Bush should be his number one fan. It's not his fault anymore. Debbie says, maybe stupid questions. Can't the bridge lanes be expanded because the interstates are adding lanes? Would that be cheaper? Cheaper, yes. More effective, no. And that's not a stupid question. We need another bridge to have a complete other outlet. Even if the other bridge is one lane in each direction, which it won't be. But if there's an accident on a 3-lane bridge, it's going to affect a 4-lane bridge just as much as it would a 3-lane bridge. That's not a dumb question at all, though. 7:06. Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. Thanks again to Dr. Sean Wilson for hopping on board for what I'm going to call an abbreviated preview of what's to come. With the infrastructure bill passing, Louisiana is going to see a number of dollars in regards to transportation money coming to town. It's just too short of a segment, man. I got to give that man some room to run because I want to get into specifics. I, like many folks, feel like Charlie Brown going to kick the football every time a Mississippi River Bridge is mentioned. And really want the nuts and bolts of the whole thing. I want a bridge. I want this. Not to sound too much like Veruca Salt, but I want a bridge, Daddy. Yes, a Willy Wonka reference. Hey, by the way, if you're listening to us on air, you've got about 53 minutes left. We have got some work to be done on our tower. That involves powering down the tower, which means now, well, that's a little walking-ish. Now's a good time to get over to talk1073.com. Now's a good time to download the all-new Talk 1073 mobile app, or now is a good time to hop on our YouTube page and subscribe. Mornings with Brian Haldane on YouTube. Our third hour of the show is going to be available digitally, but the traditional on-air signal will be down as we do some work on the tower. Kind of, can't be sending electricity through that bad boy when sending folks up it. It's a bad combo, man. This hour, we've got Jason DeCuir coming on in our next segment to talk a little bit about what's going to be on your ballot this Saturday. Am I pounding this drum enough? I hope so. Because a lot of work has been done to get these first two constitutional amendments passed. Numbers 3 and 4, I'm probably going to look at some point before the election gets here. I just don't care. Numbers 1 and 2, big time. So, Jason DeCuir in our next segment. Baton Rouge Police Chief Murphy Paul will be in studio this hour as well. Right now, though, I got to remind you about the folks over at Mattress. I was getting a stink eye from Jake. He's like, you missed it again, man. Hey, Mattress has got you squared away for Thanksgiving. Look, do not overdo it or overwork yourself for this Thanksgiving. You want a little catering help? Mattress can help you out. And the way to do that is by calling them, 367-6074. 367-6074. That's for the LSU location of Mattress. Nicholson at Skip Burtman Drive, right across the street from Tiger Stadium. You can also find them downtown on 3rd Street. But Nicholson at Skip Burtman Drive, they're on campus. They're not just for students, though. But that's where you will find them on campus, Nicholson at Skip Burtman Drive for Mattress. Get your Thanksgiving squared away. And, oh, by the way, also a full-service grocery store. Knock your shopping out. Boom, get it done. As we get closer to the weekend, I do tell you about the craft beer selection, which includes the one that's got Chuck P on the front, or the night shift. It's an American Pale Ale, an APA, if you will. Craft beer selection at Mattress is top-notch. But, little heads up as Thanksgiving approaches, and I will remind you every single day, call Mattress. They can help you out. 367-6074. Time for top stories and trending. Let's go. Number 5 starts us off with traffic, if I can get my computer to refresh. We've been telling you about it all morning. There was an early morning wreck, 10 westbound, involving a passenger vehicle and an 18-wheeler. It left one person injured and has slowed traffic near between College and Acadian on 10 westbound. The crash occurred shortly before 5 a.m., according to Baton Rouge Police. One wounded person was treated for non-life-threatening injuries, but it started the backups and delays early this morning, and those delays continue. Management of the nearly century-old Louisiana Old Governor's Mansion in downtown Baton Rouge has been transferred to Secretary of State Kyle Ardoin's office. The Governor's Division of Administration has entered into an agreement shifting control of the mansion to the Secretary of State's office. They also handle the old state capitol right down the street, the state archives, and 7 other museum facilities, so they've got the infrastructure within Ardoin's office to take care of the Old Governor's Mansion as well. A man was arrested after attempting to solicit oral sex with a juvenile through social media. East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office arrested 27-year-old Joshua Sanchez yesterday after he allegedly messaged a 15-year-old through social media asking a number of inappropriate questions dating all the way back to April 3rd. According to arrest documents, Sanchez attempted to, I don't feel the need to say it twice, after the victim told Sanchez exactly how old he was. Deputies told Sanchez deputies said Sanchez had a prior relationship with the victim's family and was a coach to one of their younger family members. He was charged with indecent behavior with juveniles. A 21-year-old man was arrested after he was accused of bringing a gun to a high school last spring. According to the East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Office, an eyewitness claimed to see 21-year-old Dante Thompson putting a handgun under his clothing before entering Bel Air High School back on April 22nd. This was confirmed by surveillance footage. When deputies tracked Thompson down, he was entering a Winburn Avenue business. Authorities say they called out to him. He ran away in an attempt to evade him. Thompson was finally located and arrested this week. He is charged with carrying a weapon in a firearm-free zone, being a fugitive from justice, carrying a firearm or dangerous weapon on school property, and resisting an officer. Law enforcement in Mississippi traveled to Louisiana recently to interview an LSU band member who alleged misconduct by a longtime state trooper while LSU was playing a football game at Mississippi State. Student's lawyer, Sherman Mack, said authorities were planning to interview other witnesses before turning the case over to prosecutors. The teen alleges that after the game, the trooper supplied band members with alcohol and touched her inappropriately. Mack's client reported the inappropriate behavior to her band director. That's when LSU opened the Title IX investigation into the matter. LSU then notified state police from there. That's a look at your top stories. Here's a look at what's trending this morning. There's an end in sight, finally, on the multi-million-dollar renovation project on the theater at the River Center. Renovations costing nearly $18 million at the Raising Cane's River Center Performing Arts Theater in Baton Rouge is finally coming to an end, and the center is scheduled to reopen in January. Quote, "It's very exciting to finally see some motion, some action here, make it a little more alive," says Elisa Gwynn with the River Center's management. She says the work began back in 2018. Hurricane Ida and the pandemic have caused delays in the construction. It was supposed to be finished earlier this year. The theater now has larger seats and a private VIP section. Baton Rouge Symphony did their 75th anniversary concert Friday night. Folks that went to that concert were able to get a sneak preview of what the theater is going to look like, the box seats and the like. So next Symphony concert is not until January 27th, I believe. But the River Center Theater will be back up and running before that. That's top stories and trending. We're running long. Quick break. When we come back, let's talk about elections this Saturday. That's coming up next. Let me go run downstairs real quick. This close to stepping on a scale and see that first number be a 1. So I'm almost at a 200-pound category. Well, thank you. I'm also dressed to go work LSU today. So, but yeah, it's been really fantastic and working out a lot too. Okay. So you got a workout regimen. Yeah. I'm kind of I've always been a bit of a gym rat. Yeah. So I just. You do like the eating small meals. Yeah, it's a lot of protein-based meals, and then you get one lean and green per day where a lot of fish. Yeah. Fish and vegetables for my own meal, and then it's like protein bars and shakes for their stuff. But it's all about every week I go in and I'll go over there, weigh in, sit down, talk about it. It's that kind of accountability I need. I need somebody to stay on my ass, you know. Cool. Where the ARP dollars are going, American Rescue Plan dollars, the new fleet of vehicles. And then I read an article from fentanyl hotspots. Yes. 717 Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. Saturday is fast approaching. Saturday, roughly 8% of us will go to the polls to vote on 4 constitutional amendments and maybe a family court judge. Down in New Orleans, they get to vote for a mayor as well. Ish. Joining us now to talk about a few of those constitutional amendments is Jason DeCuir from Advantis. We've checked in with Jason regularly throughout this process, especially back during the legislative process when this was making its way to get to where it would be on our ballot. We welcome him back one more time before Election Day. Jason, good morning. How are you, sir?
Well, good morning, Brian. And look, I don't know if I've ever had a chance to publicly say it before we get going, but you and your crew do a tremendous job of covering the news. At least I know there's one place I can go to kind of get fair and balanced news in Louisiana. I just wanted to mention that, Brian.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that a great deal. Thank you very much. And I'm not fair or balanced when it comes to Amendments 1 and 2. I've been unabashedly in favor of them. And I don't mind saying it out loud. We're one of 2 states in the nation that does not have some sort of centralized sales tax collection, and that's what Amendment 1 does. And I got no problem saying, yeah, I would like everybody to vote yes, so I bring you on to tell them why.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on, and you hit the nail on the head. I mean, this is an absolute no-brainer. You said it in your outset. Really, there's only one other state in the country that has a fractured, decentralized system, and that's Colorado. And they're having the same struggles in trying to fix their system. And basically, and I know some people are looking at that language and saying, man, this is complex language. Unfortunately, as you and I talked during the legislative session, you have to go through a very cumbersome process to get some ballot language on there. But at the end of the day, this is just simplifying our sales tax system so that the state of Louisiana can keep up with the rest of the country and collect the money that's due to us. If we don't do that, then we're going to constantly be in budget crisis mode. And if we're constantly in budget crisis mode, legislators and others are going to have to look to fill that void. And this is a clear opportunity for us to do that. The second thing that I've always mentioned is, if we don't do this and we continue to collect these taxes, we may be collecting them in an unconstitutional manner. And Brian, I'm kind of a nerd, and I wake up in the mornings and I read all the national tax journals, and I can tell you already that there are taxpayers out there mentioning us in Colorado as potential states for lawsuits if this amendment doesn't pass. So it is a very simple amendment from that standpoint. It doesn't raise taxes. It doesn't lower taxes. What it does is it simply puts us in a system in this economy, this era, that will allow us to continue to collect the sales tax that we're due.
I hadn't even gotten to that part of the equation yet. I've been fixated on the small business aspect of operating in more than one parish or more than one taxing district. And my biggest thing with this one, Jason, is no, you're not raising taxes, but yes, you are raising revenue. One of the things we've seen since March of 2020 or the beginning of the pandemic, and we were seeing it before that, but it really ramped up, the shift to online shopping has been ridiculous. Our online economy grows every single day, but online tax collections, the mom and pop who have a storefront are not able to run at the same speed that the national, the national or global, whatever. There's not a fair playing field, and this will level the playing field a good bit and collect a lot more that should have been collected before without raising what's needed or what's.
That's absolutely right. I mean, for our in-state businesses, this finally gives them a system where, they're not spending several weeks trying to figure out how to comply with each and every jurisdiction and the state. And just for reminders out there, we've got 54 different local collectors in the state, and we've got the state, obviously, who collects taxes. And if you're doing business as a small business in multiple parishes, and we have a lot of businesses that do that, you have to figure out how to comply in each and every parish as well as at the state. And guess what? All of those parishes in the state don't always agree on what the rule of law is or what's owed or what's not. So you could be filling out multiple tax returns completely different ways over the same issue of law. And that just needs to stop. It's such a burden on doing business. When I was with the state and working back then with Secretary Stephen Moray and trying to recruit businesses to Louisiana, one of the biggest gripes about coming to Louisiana is the amount of administrative headache that companies would spend trying to just comply with our sales tax structure. I mean, they had to specifically budget for that because wherever they were located or wherever they were coming from, the system was just much easier. And this will promote fair play between both in-state and out-of-state. Currently, your out-of-state sellers get to go through the Remote Sales Commission, which is kind of a one-stop shop. But we should not be giving out-of-state companies an easier route at this than our in-state business.
100%. 100%. And that's Amendment 1. Amendment 2 is, Amendment 2 keeps our taxes low. That's about the best way to put that. If you could, please, just put it back on a tee for everyone as Saturday approaches. Let's walk through Amendment 2, please.
Yeah, Amendment 2, and when you look at it, it kind of centers around what's called the federal income tax deduction. And again, we're kind of, us and Alabama are one of the only two states that have this federal income tax deduction. And as a result, it ties you to changes that Congress makes. And Brian, we know how consistent Congress is with our taxes. A good example of this is when, Trump cut taxes at the federal level. Just about every taxpayer, individual taxpayer in Louisiana had to pay more taxes, not because of a state law change, but simply because Congress made changes. When Congress cuts taxes, our taxes should also be lowered. And we were one of the few states that the taxes increased when Congress was able to cut taxes. Well, we have to decouple from the federal system in order to get that benefit for it to flow through. And so simply what this is doing is removing us from the federal income tax deduction, but in exchange, it's lowering our rates. And now we're going to go from some of the highest rates on income and corporate income tax in the country to some of the lowest top-end rates in the entire country. And so, just about every taxpayer should receive some benefit in terms of lower taxes by this move. The other thing that's kind of not on necessarily the ballot, but others bills that the legislature passed that is tied to this, one is very important, particularly for our small businesses, is that it phases out and gets rid of the corporate franchise tax. That's not being talked about. But if this Amendment 2 passes, then we are going to begin to move away from a very harmful corporate franchise tax, which is a tax on the property, capital assets of your business. Mississippi, other states have begun to phase that out. That's a very important piece to this puzzle, Brian, if number 2 was to pass.
You're right, it is, and it's something that's very much overlooked. I used to do a podcast with Scott McKay from the Hayride, and I stole a phrase from him. He says, every time you think you're raising taxes, you're raising Texas. And the franchise tax is probably the most exemplary of all those.
Yeah, I mean, during when COVID really became a thing, and you may remember the Economic Recovery Task Force, one of the problems was that small businesses had to close their doors, restaurants, other businesses, no fault of their own.
Right.
They were forced to help comply with the pandemic. But that franchise tax bill kept coming, regardless of the fact that they had no revenue, wasn't generating. So we were able to suspend that tax, particularly for small businesses, throw them a lifeline so that they could get by during the pandemic. And now, because of that policy and moving in that direction, we're able to continue that. But this is a much, much needed phase out of a very harmful tax, and that is tied to the passage of number 2. So in other words, if number 2 doesn't pass, then we're kind of back to status quo with the corporate franchise tax, 5 different corporate income tax rates, which we have 2 taxes on corporations, a corporate income tax and a corporate franchise tax. This will simplify, lower the rates in corporate income tax, as well as phase out the franchise tax, plus you'll get the benefit of those lower personal income tax rates. So all 3 of those things are tied to this amendment.
So that's amendments number 1 and 2. You got to take on amendment 3. It involves taxes as well, but it's more on a local level involving different levy districts.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I don't have a ton of a skin in that one per se.
Me neither.
But I will tell you that, look, there are many areas of Louisiana that absolutely need the proper flood protection. This allows them to create little entities, jurisdictions, if you will, in those areas to help fund the protection of those levees. I don't see that as a bad thing, and I'm sure the communities that would impact are going to have an opportunity to go and see if it's warranted and needed in their community. And obviously, with the number of hurricanes and weather events that we get, we know how important that is, Brian.
Yeah, it absolutely is. But that's one of those ones where I'm not going to have any stake in the outcome of it. So, except to say that if one of those particular levy districts does not pass what they need to get done, it's going to fall back on everybody else to pick them up when the next disaster happens.
No question. Yes, and you will find that a lot of people are, very, very supportive of that, particularly in those areas where it's most needed.
And then finally, there's amendment number 4, which, honestly, we've all been ignoring amendment number 4, but it brings up a number of questions with where are we at with trusting our state government? Amendment number 4 increases the amount of allowed reduction of certain dedicated funds when a budget deficit is projected. If I'm reading this right, it gives the state legislature the leeway to move some money around if they have to?
Yeah, so basically what this amendment does, Brian, is you often hear that, whenever we go into budget crisis mode, there's really only two main sources that aren't dedicated that we tap into,
right?
That's higher ed and healthcare. And you have some limits as to where else you can go in to tap into funds in terms of dedicated funds. What this does is increases those limits so that you have other sources of revenue. And, that's a whole nother conversation in terms of how much we have in terms of constitutionally dedicated revenue and statutory dedicated revenue, that no matter the situation of where those sources and where that revenue is dedicated, you can't tap in and touch it. So you're very limited, which often, as you'll see, you're trying to raise the sales tax or do something else. This increases that a little bit so that there are other sources when you're in those dire situations. So, that's what the proponents of it would say. Some of the opponents would say, well, look, if we're in a dire situation, let's not tap, let's make the appropriate cuts. And, I kind of see both sides of the argument here. So I think it does get down, Brian, to, do you trust your legislature to tap into those areas?
It does, and as overlooked as it's been, it's going to end up being important the next time we hit a budget crisis. And somewhere, every time he hears about Amendment number 4, Bobby Jindal slaps the table and says, "Thank you."
yes, yeah, we do, and eventually, we do need to look into a lot of these just historically dedicated, make sure they're still serving their purposes, or do we need to go in and eventually do the hard work and unlock some of that? But that's going to take a whole nother study commission, task force, and looking at all that. But I do believe that needs to be evaluated sooner than later.
He is Jason DeCuir from Advantis. It all goes down Saturday, where roughly 8% of us will show up to make our voices heard. That's a whole other frustrating topic for a whole other day. Jason, appreciate you hopping on, man.
Thank you. Go out and vote, please. Thank you.
Absolutely. We got CBS News coming your way in just a minute. After the break, Baton Rouge Police Chief Murphy Paul is in studio. He's getting to go on what is the equivalent of a BRPD version of Supermarket Sweep real quick. American Rescue Plan dollars are on their way in, and, he's got a shopping list. I'm going to ask him about where that money's going to be spent. Also, we got some serious stuff to talk about as well, as the homicide rate does, it has surpassed a record number. A recent article shows some hot spots when it comes to drug deals and drug overdoses. We'll dive into that as well. Baton Rouge Police Chief Murphy Paul coming up right after this break on Talk 107.3. Good morning, sir.
How are you?
I'm good, man. You good?
I am. It's where's my ear?
That money's gonna serve us well.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
So, I had a. 738 Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. Time to welcome in Baton Rouge Police Chief Murphy Paul. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you today, sir?
Doing very well. I've been debating in my mind over the course of the break. Do we start with the fun stuff or do we start with the serious business? I'm gonna leave this up to you. You got money to spend.
Let's start serious and go.
I was leaning that way. Homicides are at a record high.
Yes, sir.
And that is, and opioid deaths are at a record high. And there's a Venn diagram that shows that those two things are not mutually exclusive. Had District Attorney Hiller Moore on last week, and he said that a lot of the homicides, there's a lot of domestic violence. That is a separate problem, but there's a lot of drug problems as well. Saw a story in The Advocate over the weekend. It's actually sitting just to your left right there about fentanyl hotspots. I can't help but notice that a number of headlines very recently include fentanyl being listed as what's been confiscated during arrests. Are we to a point where, and I don't expect us to turn the corner right away, but are we to a point where we're going to start to see this more often, where a concerted effort towards tracking down fentanyl is going to lead us to more arrests involved with homicides and and opioid deaths?
Well, we hope so. We're having conversations with our federal partners. Some of the things that we're doing different, and it's highlighted in that report, the data. We've been taking this data and pushing it out to service providers, those who are in the recovery business, those experts who are addiction experts. We've been pushing data to our faith-based community as well, in hopes that they can go into those areas, those hot spots, and provide services and try to encourage those who are suffering from that monster called addiction to get help. But we are looking at the data. We have new analysts that are currently being hired. We just hired a senior consultant who's an expert in analytics as part of our real-time crime center to see how we can be proactive. But that does not stop our enforcement actions as well.
Right.
Our street crimes unit has been out there very actively making arrests on drugs, drug dealers, those who are involved in trafficking narcotics throughout our community. We've been seizing a lot of guns and drugs, and we still have this challenge.
You talk about getting to the faith-based communities, and I would imagine when it comes to fentanyl, the messaging changes. This isn't a matter of you've got a relative or a friend who just gets high on the weekends. Fentanyl is a different kind of poison.
It is very toxic. It's high. I mean, if you look at, and I think the coroner spoke to this, all of these overdoses that we have, one of the common denominators is fentanyl. There's a mixture with other illegal narcotics, but it's the fentanyl that's inside those persons who are dying from overdoses.
So the drug deals is one thing that leads to the homicide rate. The domestic violence is another. What can be done in that regard?
Domestic violence is it's at an all-time high. Right now, we're at about 100 actual homicides in the city of Baton Rouge. I believe we're at about 109 total homicides. That counts negligent homicides. But one of the things that we're seeing when we pull the data, when we make arrests in these homicides, it wasn't our first time dealing with those individuals who we are arresting. We're seeing some areas where we have to do better with that accountability piece. I may have shared with this before, but when we're dealing with the same individuals over and over again, today's victim, if he survives, is tomorrow's suspect, and today's suspect is tomorrow's victim. We're dealing with a small group of individuals, and it's people, it's places and things. There's a small group of people who are doing certain things in certain places.
Very specifically, what can be done better from either your office, or do you need to call people out in other offices? I mean, what can be done better here?
Well, those that we are arresting, those that at our office are, we need to put them in jail, and they need to stay in jail because they're getting right back out. We've seen that the baby who was killed, I believe that was on the 4th of July.
Memorial Day. Fairway View Apartments you're talking about? Yeah.
Memorial Day weekend. Look at those individuals were out on several different bonds, already had pending charges, both the suspects in that case and the victims in that particular case. There has to be more accountability for the bad actors in this community, period.
Getting us to that point, though, is like, how do we get to that point? Is it just a matter of sentencing has to be tougher? Is it a matter of?
I think there's several opportunities for intervention in terms of preventing this on accountability side. You know, technology has advanced so much, as you know, what we've done in our RTCC, and some of the things we're doing with our real-time crime center to be more efficient and helping use technology to leverage not only the challenges in law enforcement, but also some of the manpower issues that we're seeing in law enforcement all across America. But there's technology. You know, one of the things that I am asking, and I've had conversations with our law enforcement partners, is, you know, why is it that when these individuals who have been arrested get out on bond, that we can't have some type of tracking device or a better way to track those individuals?
Does that run afoul of any constitutional questions?
So far, I've not been told. I'm not the expert on that, but we are exploring that, and I've been quite vocal about that piece of it. I think that's one area that we can improve in.
It absolutely, and I don't think anybody in Baton Rouge would be putting up that big a fight just because we see the numbers. We see what y'all have to face on a daily basis. You mentioned shortages in law enforcement nationwide, and you're experiencing those as well within the Baton Rouge Police Department. And this is going to kind of transition us into the American Rescue Plan dollars that are coming to town.
Yep.
You were able to get a raise heading into the end of last year, into this year. Where are we at with numbers, and where are we at with recruitment right now? Because that's been a battle.
Yeah, so right now we're sitting on about 112 vacancies, right
Yeah.
there around that number. Keep in mind, over the past decade, we averaged 50 vacancies a year.
Okay.
So we've always averaged 50 vacancies. We have a academy class just graduated a couple of weeks ago. Today, actually, is our last round of interviews. We've been interviewing. We got about 36 going through the process. We've been doing interviews for the past few weeks, and today is the last date. So those remaining candidates will go through the process today. Some of the feedback I'm getting from those on the interview panel, it's a very, very mature class. Young kids, but very impressed with their responses to the questions. I was very, to hear all of those who on the interview panel talk about this is going to be a really good class. They've been very impressed with the candidates that are going through the process. We've also just hired 2 police officers from other agencies who came aboard. They're sitting in the real-time crime center until the academy starts, and I believe we have 5 police officers from other agencies who expressed an interest to come here who are going through the process. And we're starting that class, I believe, the second week of December.
112 vacancies, and we just saw in Minneapolis, we got our election day coming up on Saturday. We just saw in Minneapolis, and I believe we saw in Portland as well, this defund the police garbage looks like it's falling to the wayside. Folks went to the polls in Minneapolis, which was ground zero for so much discontent, and they still stood up and said, no, we're not defunding anything. Are we about to see a turning of the tide when it comes to a national perception of police forces?
Well, look, I think that's just because there's those who speak the loudest don't always represent the masses, and I think that's an indicator of that.
Yeah.
I think that if you really, in the midst of the tragedy that happened in Minnesota and all of the trauma that we've seen that was expressed in different forms throughout the country, at the end of the day, people love their law enforcement and support law enforcement officers. The whole defund movement was wrong. We're fortunate that we had leadership here who never believed in that a strategy or defunding our police officers. You know, when you look at when you started to see these conversations happen on the national level in other cities, it just didn't happen here. We knew that defunding the police was not an option for the city of Baton Rouge, and we know that this community supports law enforcement, and there's a lot of things we can do with dollars that we find in our budget. So defunding the police is not an option for us. And I think the mayor's leadership and what we see our city council support with the ARP shows the love and support that we have. For
Look
our
at Chief
police.
Paul with this segue. A minute and a half to go. Let's talk ARP dollars. What are we getting? Shopping spree time.
$8 million in vehicles. You know, our vehicle pool has not been up to where it should be. So we're going to be buying new police vehicles. There's a challenge because there's not a lot of vehicles out there. So
I didn't even think about that end.
It's not a lot of vehicles out there.
Running around
We're
empty
having
car
trouble.
lots.
It's been challenging trying to find vehicles for dollars that we had already committed in our previous budgets, carry forward dollars. And so what we did, we had to diversify our pool, right? We wanted to buy a certain brand. Now we have to go out and buy what's available. So we're doing that with that $8 million. And then a technology piece, you know, about a $350,000 for our strategic camera program, about $700,000 plus for our enhanced automatic license plate reader program to help with our investigative efforts, enhancing the capacity in the real-time crime center, laptops, desktops, and software to help with the analytical exploitation of all of this data. So we're excited about that, and look, we want to thank our city council and our mayor for supporting us on that. It's going to be some dollars that are going to be used for proactive patrol in those hotspot areas or those micro areas in the city where we are seeing crime. And also, all of this is going to help with our recruiting efforts. You know, we're doing pretty good compared to other parts of the nation and departments with our rate. You know, we're having academies back to back, and we're already preparing for our next academy next year, and the applications are coming through. There was an event at Baton Rouge Community College where we had 60 plus individuals at that recruiting event that signed up to come work for our police department.
Good stuff.
Not just police officers, but other positions as well. You know, we have analysts, we have dispatchers, and other positions available as well.
Yeah, and that's important to get that word out as well, because when you talk about the shortages, any help at all is, you know, there are many ways to contribute without. I mean, we want as many walking the beat as possible, but there are many ways to contribute across the board. In the meanwhile, I appreciate the time as always. We'll get you on your way. We got to take a quick break on air. When we come back, we're going to step outside of East Baton Rouge Parish. We bring in the outside in every day here on Talk 107.3. Chief Paul, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Let's get you a quick break. All good. No worries. No worries. Oh.
Thank you, brother.
No, thank you. That was I didn't think we were going to get into the shortage, but it's important to talk about it, especially if y'all got that many recruits rolling through.
Oh yeah, we've been fortunate. I mean, look, if you look at our turnover ratio, we're probably 7 point something right now, and I thought if we didn't have those classes, it would be a lot more. So we're probably going to, if we hire 30. If we get 30 in this next class, or 25, obviously that'll bring us below 100 vacancies in the department. But we've been fortunate. If we wouldn't have classes, we'd really be hurting. Yeah. We're still behind. We got to get. We'll be about 30 behind after this class.
Well, it's, you know, I don't know.
But we're not the only one. Go look at.
No, it's a national problem. It is and that's why I brought up the Minneapolis stuff, is because Minneapolis has been ground zero for this. I don't know if Mike's on.
Yeah.
It's ground zero for this bullshit.
I flew to Minneapolis, and
755 Talk 1073 FM, WBRP. Thanks again to Baton Rouge Police Chief Murphy Paul for hopping on board. Hey, got to ask you about your lunch plans real quick. Oh, also got to remind you, if you're not listening on the stream, on our website, or on YouTube, get over there now because we're about to hop off the air due to some tower work coming up very shortly. Lunch plans. Go by Mooyah. Burgers, fries, and shakes. 2 locations. One on Seagan, just north of Industrialplex. One on Bluebonnet at Highland Road. I'm a double Diablo guy. Wait, stop. I used to be a double Diablo guy. I've lost a lot of weight. I can't double that Diablo anymore. I'm just a Diablo guy now. 1 patty. You take the spicy with the double Diablo or Diablo. It's got the Cholula sauce. It's got the pepper jack cheese. It's got the jalapeno peppers. And you pair it with sweet potato fries that you dip in honey. And you get the spicy and sweet combination. Or maybe you want to go a best case scenario. You get queso right on the burger. Maybe you go the well-dunion with the onion strings right on the burger. Either way, both locations of Mooyah Burgers, Fries, and Shakes are here for you today at lunch and, well, basically every day at lunch. All right, let's step outside of East Baton Rouge Parish. Baton Rouge Physical Therapy brings you the outside in. Oh, God. We're going to go to YouTube. We're going to go to YouTube next hour. All right. Enough programming notes. We're starting off at St. Tammany Parish, where former Sheriff Jack Strain has been found guilty on 4 counts of aggravated rape, 2 counts of aggravated incest, 1 count of indecent behavior of a juvenile, and 1 count of aggravated battery. Basically, every charge he was facing. By the way, 1 aggravated rape conviction means a mandatory life sentence in prison, so he gone. We head next to West Baton Rouge, where state police are investigating a fatal crash involving a pedestrian on I-10 east of Highway 415 in West Baton Rouge Parish. The crash claimed the life of 19-year-old Gunnar Thornton of Lake Charles. The initial investigation revealed the crash occurred as the pedestrian was in the eastbound lanes of 10. While in the roadway, he was struck by multiple vehicles. Thornton sustained fatal injuries as a result of that crash, pronounced dead on the scene. Next stop, St. Landry Parish, where the search continues for a woman who's accused of going to get a gun after an argument. And Deputy Chief Eddie Thibodeau says 38-year-old Ashley Sims shot her mother going to get a gun and shooting her mother. Excuse me, I had a little cut and paste on this one that's not really panning out. 38-year-old Ashley Sims shot her mother multiple times Friday night as the two were fighting, allegedly, and then she fled in a black 2013 Mercedes-Benz SUV. Vera Sims, the victim, was taken to a Lafayette hospital where she continues to be treated for her wounds. The search for Ashley continues. She's described by the sheriff's office being a black female who's around 5'3", said to weigh around 140 pounds. In Livingston Parish, a sheriff's deputy whose canine partner died after he left it inside a hot vehicle was stripped of rank. This, according to a sheriff's office spokesperson who confirmed it months after the animal's death. The Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office said this past weekend the deputy, who has not been identified by the department, was demoted and had his pay docked as a result. This is the first time the Sheriff's Office has shared specifics surrounding the disciplinary actions tied to the incident, which happened back on August 20th. Closing out Natchitoches Parish at Northwestern State University. You've been hearing this in our news at the at the bottom of the hour. History's in the books with the naming of Marcus Jones as the 20th president of Northwestern State. UL System President and CEO Jim Henderson says Jones has risen through the ranks and will be Northwestern's first African-American leader. Prior to Monday's decision, the UL System Board of Supervisors, Jones has most recently served as the interim president. He's a native of Winfield, and get this, is the 18th of 20 children. CBS News is next. Oh! We act as if, and grabbing for, if you switch on Sterlitz from WBRP to WBRP Stream, you should be able to still get it. I don't think I think so. I hope so.
If not, my plan was just to take the internet PC,
Yep.
queue it, and then record into. Wouldn't that work as well?
Yes, it would.
Hit record
Yeah.
when you get back in, and then
As long as it's in program 2, you're good to go. Yes.
I'll do that. Do I have to queue it or no? I have to turn it on. That's right.
Yeah.
I think I'm just gonna do that because it seems a lot more manageable. So I just keep doing the same stuff as if. Doesn't matter if I put things in program 1 or not.
Say again.
Doesn't matter if I put things in program 1.
For the rest of the show, run the rest of the show as if it's a regular show. Don't change anything. Down to 1. Oh. Oh. We're going off in about 10 to 15 minutes. Oh, Anna, I'm just now seeing your. I apologize. I had my Go Vote app open to run through the amendments. A yes vote on Amendment 1 means you're in favor of consolidating taxes. A yes vote or consolidating sales tax collection. A yes vote on Amendment 2 means that you are in favor of capping where income tax is going to be at a lower rate. A yes vote on Amendment 3 doesn't matter because we're not within a levy district that we need to worry about here. A yes vote on Amendment 4 gives the state legislature more discretion on moving funds around so that every time we're in a budgetary crisis, which we will be in a budgetary crisis a lot less if you vote yes on Amendments 1 and 2. But every time there's a budget crisis and you hear, got to cut health care and higher ed, got to cut health care and higher ed, this would affect that. But we're not done with this yet. We will have somebody on before the end of the week to go over it one more time. Probably from PAR, the Public Affairs Research Council. So. Ah! What'd I break? I hate when she does that. Galen said he couldn't hear the chief. Byron says, what's going on with the area by Sherwood and I-12? Every time I drive by there, I feel like I'm on the set of Escape from New York. It is bad. There's like normally 4 panhandlers. Like 12 westbound off-ramp at Sherwood, you're going to find one. Sherwood, if you're heading southbound under the interstate, you're going to find one. Sherwood northbound heading under the interstate, you're going to find one. And 12 eastbound getting off the interstate, you're going to find one. I don't know if they rotate every hour or what, but no. 8:06, Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. Hour 3 coming your way right now. So I got a text during the break that we're going to be on the air for another 10 minutes or so before things shut down. And I feel very comfortable saying that because if you can hear it on the air, it's still true. And if we're not on the air, then you can't hear it anyway. So either way, I can't be wrong. We will be talking with Congressman Troy Carter later on this hour. You said, Brian, but you're going off the air. Well, hey, move over to the stream, talk1073.com, or the app, the Talk 1073 mobile app. Go ahead and download that bad boy. Or, it's kind of my favorite, visit our YouTube channel, Mornings with Brian Haldane on YouTube. Go ahead and subscribe. That way you can get an alert every time we go on the air. Go ahead and subscribe, hit us up, and you can interact with the show on YouTube for the third hour of the day. We've had some tower work that's been needed to get done. They're out there right now. They're about to head on up, so that means they're going to shut us down. It could happen at any minute. No, it didn't just happen. But we will disappear this hour. Hey, which means we need to just dive right in. Every day at this time, Jake takes us back in time for this day in history. What you got?
We're going to start things off.
Yeah, we are. I'm
18.
glad you mentioned that. It was a good weigh-in last Friday over at Go Slim Nutrition, Blue Bonnet at Perkins, right next door to Rouse's, 763-9600. You know what? While we're still on the air, I probably should squeeze this one in.
Okay,
you're
fine,
taking a backseat to a sponsor.
All right.
A sponsor who's doing great things.
I see how it is.
Yeah, you do see how it is. They pay the bills. All right. Hey, Go Slim Nutrition had a great weigh-in last week. If you want to get ahead of the holiday season before it gets here, Thanksgiving is just around the corner, Christmas to follow. Like, that's a surprise. But if you want to get ahead of the holiday season this year, visit Go Slim Nutrition. Give them a call at 763-9600. Visit GEAUXSlimBR.com or just swing on by. I'm there every Friday at 10 o'clock. I will introduce you to Vicky and her team. So many folks are taking part in this now, and it's not about the food, even though the food's great. It's about the accountability. It's about setting lifestyle habits, not just following a diet. GEAUXSlimBR.com to learn more. 763-9600 is the website, or just swing on by. Anytime this week, I'll be there Friday. All right, Jake, back to you.
1858. First performance of New York Symphony Orchestra.
Really?
Yes. All the way back in 1858. It's a very long time ago. 1861. First documented Canadian football game at U of Toronto.
Me of Toronto?
No, not you specifically, but you.
Mm-hmm.
The letter.
Me.
No.
Oh, the letter. All right.
Come on now. 1888. Jack the Ripper's fifth and probably last victim, Mary Jane Kelly, found on her bed.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah. 1904. First airplane flight to last more than 5 minutes.
Wait, what?
First airplane flight to last more than 5 minutes.
The ones that didn't last 5 minutes, were they scheduled to be under 5 minutes, or was this a lot of tragedy?
The Wright brothers had a lot of trial and error, that's for sure.
All right.
1906, Theodore Roosevelt is the first U.S. president to visit another country, Puerto Rico and Panama.
Okay. You know, you had a little accent when you said that.
It's because I'm Cuban. Kinda.
You're Cuban?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Fun fact, I'm Cuban.
All right.
1907, the Cullinan diamond, the largest ever diamond discovered, is presented to King Edward VII on his birthday. It weighed in at 3,106.75 carats, or 621.35 grams.
Wow.
It's a chunk of a diamond right there.
I'll tell you.
Moving on, almost an entire century, 2004. Video game Halo 2 is a first-person shooter first released on Xbox by Bungie Studios.
Cool.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite games of all time. Shout out to Halo. 2018. Attacker stabs 3, killing 1 in Melbourne, Australia, with homeless man hailed as hero for using shopping trolley to stop him.
Okay.
I feel like that would have been very... I mean, that's horrible, but the shopping trolley bit must have been incredible.
Yeah. What is a shopping trolley?
Like a shopping cart.
A cart. Okay.
Well, I mean, and not everyone speaks like us, Brian.
Okay.
That's all the events I have. I only have one birthday to mention. I only found one.
Oh?
Carl Sagan.
Yep.
Astronomer. Born on this day in 1934. You got any for me?
I do.
Let's hear him.
Lou Ferrigno.
Bless you.
Lou Ferrigno, the Incredible Hulk. Lou Ferrigno.
I'm kidding. I know who he is.
Do you know who Nick Lachey is?
I may?
There's a little band called 98 Degrees.
Nah.
If you're ranking boy bands like from the 90s, 98 Degrees is probably somewhere around they're not in the top 10. That's fair.
Would that put them middle
I think
of the
he was
pack?
also married to Jessica Simpson.
Oh.
That sounds right. That could be way off.
The 90s were weird.
Yeah. Cisco's birthday is today.
Cisco?
Oh. Now I'm going to get offended. The Thong Song? Cisco?
Oh, yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I get that one. Any more? Is that it?
No, that was it.
Okay.
My normal email that comes with all the sports stuff on it, it was just blank today. And I was getting a little offended.
Come on now.
Yeah.
I got no deaths to report, but let's get right into the national holidays. First up, we have World Freedom Day.
Chisels sold out on this day in Germany in 1989. They literally ran out of chisels to bang down the Berlin Wall and dance on top of it, which is not a good combination because if somebody's on top of the wall that you're knocking down, they're going to fall. Yeah. Much like communism did. Boom.
America. Chaos Never Dies Day.
Yes, it is.
It is that day.
Yeah, it's a weird national holiday.
I don't know how to process it.
On this day, instead of getting hassled by chaos, just take a deep breath and let go of things that create chaos in your life on this day.
I guess that kind of lines up with World Freedom Day.
Well, you're supposed to be using this day as a day to find new ways to de-stress. Yeah.
Chaos.
Chaos. If you want to get rid of chaos, you call Maxwell Smart.
Did you just make a Sopranos reference?
No, it was a Get Smart reference. Oh, God.
I'm just assuming. I made a Game of Thrones reference. I thought you were going to make another TV
I never
show.
watched Game of Thrones.
Why?
I don't know.
You can't be giving me crap for no Sopranos. You haven't watched Game of Thrones?
Game of Thrones. Yeah, I didn't get into it. It was looking for shows that I could sit back and enjoy, with either the wife or kids.
That's not
with Sopranos. No, Game of Thrones was just over the top. Too much blood and sex, said no one ever. It was!
No, you're not wrong. It's
I
just
saw 3
the way
episodes.
you put it was really funny. The first episode start with a bang, for sure.
Yes, and I saw, interestingly enough, the 3 episodes I saw the first episode. I saw an episode that was titled The Red Wedding.
Oh, you just got right into the meat and potatoes with that.
I mean, yeah, raw meat and potatoes. And then I saw the one that everybody talked about in the last season. After that, the last season went downhill. The one with the overnight fight.
Oh,
with the
one
night
that
people.
The one that you couldn't see half the time?
Yeah.
Yeah, the one where they turned the brightness all the way down.
I actually thought that one was good. But I didn't have anything to compare it to. All I had was the Red Wedding in the first episode.
Well, if you saw any of the other battles in that show, you would
and somebody
know.
slamming their cousins. I don't need that.
Yeah. Let's move along. Go to an art museum day.
No.
No, I'm good.
No.
Although I can't appreciate the fine arts. But finally, the most important holiday in history of the history. National Fried Chicken Sandwich Day.
I like it.
I like it too.
whatever happened to the good old days of what was it, like a year or so ago when Popeyes and Chick-fil-A were doing battle?
Chick-fil-A.
That's what my 5-year-old calls it.
Ah, okay.
So yeah, that's one of
Still
the
funny.
Yeah, when you have kids one day, like the kids will say things wrongly, and you'll pick them up and just say the wrong thing because of it. Chick-fil-A is in our
Chick-fil-A.
house. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah,
Now everyone's making chicken sandwiches.
yeah.
People
which is
call it the
stupid.
Wild West of chicken sandwiches. That is the outside.
Popeyes is still way better than Chick-fil-A sandwich.
100%.
Don't sleep on that Popeye sandwich. And if you need a good night's sleep, the Baton Rouge. No, we'll get to that later. Baton Rouge mattress.
Come on
outlet.
now.
What? I'm gonna squeeze two of them in here. I don't even know if we're still on the air or not.
I have no idea.
All right. You can hit that. You got a button over there you can hit. Your mic's got to be off for it, though. That little external monitor? No? All right. We're due for a break. Hey, when we come back, I want to run down. Scott Rabelais in The Advocate put out, well, the headline reads, like Scott Woodward, we're trimming our list of LSU coaching candidates. Want to run this down real quick because there's a lot that I like on here, and we'll talk about it next on Talk 107.3. I don't care. Do I? Oh, yeah, I didn't write it down because I was waiting on a response from CBS to see what we're going to be talking about here. But we're going to talk about LSU coaching, potential LSU coaches. $8:19, Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. Welcome aboard on YouTube, as it were. Let me take, or on the stream, or on the app. LSU basketball, LSU women's basketball, for realsies this time, gets underway at 11 o'clock this morning. Pregame tips off at pregame starts at 10:30. Game starts at 11 o'clock. In fact, I'm all decked out because I'm heading over there right after the show. I'll be producing that. So I will move from the Talk 107.3 studios on Government Street over to LSU's campus for the first game of the Kim Mulkey era, the first real game. They had the two scrimmages, or whatever you want to call them, exhibition games. But they get underway for realsies today, and I can't wait because I want to see if everything lives up to the hype. Obviously, they're not going to fix everything in year one, but you start building a program, and you could start to see some of the inklings of what's to come from the Kim Mulkey era today, 11 o'clock, right here on Talk 107.3 FM. Speaking of LSU, there is a coaching search for the next head football coach. Weird spot we're in. Weird spot we're going to continue to be in for the next couple weeks as Ed Ogeron kind of just left at the helm. It's just not used to seeing it. I'm still not used to seeing it. I'll dive back into that in just a second. I was starting to tell you all about the Baton Rouge Mattress Outlet in the last segment. I do need to tell you about the folks over at the Baton Rouge Mattress Outlet. They've got 2 locations, 4065 Florida Boulevard or the corner of Jefferson and Hoosier 2. Mitch Kimball and his team, they take care of you at the Baton Rouge Mattress Outlet like nobody else. In fact, you're encouraged to go to sleep. Now, lay down on as many mattresses as you want. If you can fall asleep in a well-lit showroom, good on you. But lay down on as many mattresses as you want. Find out exactly what's the mattress that's right for you. Do you do the pillow top thing? Do you like it poofy, fluffy, soft? I like a little bit of firmness to my mattress. Christy and I, we tried out about, we laid down on maybe half a dozen before finding the one that was right for us. A Beauty Rest Black Label, I think is what it was called. I know it's by Beauty Rest. We went with the hybrid, did not go with the cooling gel. Got the hybrid with ours. And I got to tell you, we're about, 8 months in? And it's still like brand new. We're probably due to rotate it, but haven't even gotten there yet. It's just fantastic. And this is the one Mitch steered us towards, and it has panned out beautifully. Look, if you're not getting the best night's sleep, a lot of it can have to do with your mattress. If you're waking up with aches and pains, a lot of that can have to do with your mattress as well. 4065 Florida Boulevard in Mid-City or the corner of Jefferson and Hoosier 2. If you need to give them a call for directions, the phone number is 930-5779 for either location of the Baton Rouge Mattress Outlet. So Scott Rabolet's got a column up in the Advocate. Headline, like Scott Woodward, we're trimming our list of LSU coaching candidates. So I'm curious, and I'd like your feedback on the YouTube page. Who would you like to see at the helm for LSU next season? By the way, thanks to Nori, who posts up on YouTube, Jessica Simpson's first husband was Nick Lachey. I'm actually a little bit embarrassed that I know that. I didn't realize it was her first husband. Who knew that Jessica Simpson was just running through husbands? Who would you like to see at the helm for LSU next year? Scott Rabolet's got a number of candidates listed. He says, and I quote from the article, as the days until LSU names a new football coach dwindle, so does the list of likely or at least plausible candidates. We figure athletic director Scott Woodward has been winnowing his list down for a long time now. I'd be surprised if he has a list of more than 5 likely candidates at this point, with the expectation that he would not get to the end of that list before he gets a yes. Our list remains a little longer for now, but we too are starting to pare down. Previous versions, he had more than 10 names on the list. That is now down to, I believe he's got 8. He lists them alphabetically. So let's dive in and go through what Scott Rabolet's got. Dave Aranda, alphabetically would work out. Baylor's head coach. We all are very familiar with Aranda. He was our defensive coordinator at LSU for a number of years, up to and including a championship. Record at Baylor 9-9 overall, which is deceptive because he's 7-2 this season. Dave Aranda. Oh, by the way, they're ranked in the top 25 at Baylor right now. They're number 18 in the AP poll. Dave Aranda is an interesting prospect here. I like it a lot. 7-2 this season shows a pretty tremendous turnaround for a guy who, while he was here, a lot of folks said, does he even want to be a head coach? Clearly, he did want to be a head coach, as he's now at the helm. But when he was here, what were your takeaways? I mean, defensive genius, obviously. Not the shouting over the top guy, or at least not from a public perception standpoint. Wasn't really in the public eye, but from a coordinator standpoint, when are you? But does his success at Baylor give you enough to want to run with Dave Aranda? Rabelais says a 30-28 loss to TCU, dropping Aranda's career record to 9-9. Reminds you how small a sample size he has as a head coach. Okay. It's a small sample size, but at the same time, though, it's a sample size that covers 2 seasons that show you progress. Season 1 is what he inherited. Season 2 is what he's building. What was that meme, how it started, how it's going now? Yeah, that's where he's at. He's got 1 season of what he inherited and 1 season with what he's building, what he's working on. And that one is showing us 7-2. Up next for Scott Rabelais, or I should say up next alphabetically for Scott Rabelais, is Luke Fickell. He is Cincinnati's head coach. Cincinnati, I want to discredit this as a possible choice, but there's something very looming about the whole situation. And that's the college playoff rankings. Because Cincinnati, we'll find out later in the week if they're going to inch their way in the top 4. But if you're Luke Fickell, the job you're doing at Cincinnati is always going to be overlooked because you're not in the Power 5. Now, that being said, they're set to join a Power 5. Is it next year or the year after? So if you're Luke Fickell, do you look to go chasing a Power 5 job to get yourself in that national championship mix, or do you wait for it to come to you as you're going to move in when you're at Cincinnati? Fickell's record overall, 50-21, 44-14 at Cincinnati. He is 9-0 this season. They are ranked second in the Associated Press. But as we saw last week, they weren't in the top 4 when it came to the college football playoff. Up next would be Jimbo Fisher. I would be shocked if this one happens. There's a lot pointing in Fisher's direction. However, Scott Woodward has already hired Jimbo Fisher. Jimbo Fisher is the current head coach at Texas A&M. 7-2 this season. They're ranked 11th in the Associated Press. Jimbo Fisher has a current salary of $9 million, which would suggest he would go up from there if he were to make a move. Although, and he's got like a lot of long-term. His contract was a decade that Woodward worked out, I believe. So he's going to be around for a while. But if I'm Scott Woodward, do I go after the same guy that I'd already brought to Texas A&M, who, for all intents and purposes, should have a national championship under his belt at this point? Now, I know as LSU fans, we all believe that LSU should have national championships all the time. We just have coaches that constantly screw it up. But if I'm looking at what has transpired since Fisher's hiring over there, is it worth buying him, moving him over for more money with the results that he's shown over there? James Franklin is up next at Penn State. I've heard there are a lot of things getting in the way of this, so I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on him. Franklin, he's at 6-3 this season, ranked 23rd in the Associated Press, is Penn State. They did have a bit of a losing streak, which they snapped this week. But I understand there's some background stuff with Franklin that's going on that has to be hammered out before they can look at him in any serious way. Lane Kiffin is up next alphabetically. Kiffin is an interesting possibility. Currently at Ole Miss, 46 years old, making $4.5 million. He's 73-41 overall in his record, 12-7 at Ole Miss. But looking at his Ole Miss record is a lot like looking at Dave Aranda's record at Baylor, because he's 7-2 this season. I like Lane Kiffin a lot, but he's kind of longer odds to get this one. Billy Napier is at UL Lafayette. This is another one that a lot of people are very high on just because you want to bring somebody who's at a Louisiana school over to another Louisiana school. Napier is showing a lot of success over at UL Lafayette. He's 8-1 this season. They are in the top 25, but I'm not putting a whole lot of weight in that either. Next up, we're almost out of time. Lincoln Riley is on this list. He's Oklahoma's head coach. The odds on this one are really, really long, which brings us up to Mel Tucker, Michigan State's head coach. Tucker is probably my favorite on this list. 49 years old, making $5.5 million, so you're not going to have to break the bank like you would for Jimbo Fisher to move him over. He is 8-1 so far this season. He's got a short sample size at Michigan State. He's 10-6 overall, 8-1 this season. He's got a 15-13 overall record at Michigan State. Right now they're number 8 in the country on the Associated Press poll. But this is the one that Scott Rabelais has the shortest odds on. A 40-29 loss to Purdue does little to dim Tucker's star if you're looking at his overall resume. We'll rank him just behind Fisher for now. I don't know why he's got the shortest odds on Fisher, but Tucker would be the second shortest odds. I like him a lot. Also on the list, they've got Matt Campbell and Dabo Sweeney. Neither one of those really do a whole lot for me as far as actual potential is concerned. Let's talk with Congressman Troy Carter next. I really thought this segment was going to be longer. I needed about 4 more minutes on that segment. Hey, we're on YouTube. Why don't I finish out those 4 minutes? I like Mel Tucker for so many reasons, and there's one thing that's holding me back on him. And this is going to sound awful when I say it out loud, but I'm going to say it out loud anyway. If you hire Mel Tucker, are you hiring him under the accomplishments on the field, or are you hiring him as the first African-American head coach at LSU? Because if you're hiring him because he's the best qualified candidate, he is going to go into tremendous success here. But look at through the other prism, he is going to be unfairly judged. And that's the only thing that would give me hesitation. Now, that's not enough hesitation to not pull the trigger on bringing him in, but I don't want to see him looked at through that lens. Doodly-doot, doodly-doot. Do what? We're still on the air? That's weird. Oh, God. Kill my mic real quick.
sir. How you doing? Wonderful. We're about to be live in just a little bit. We'll get you on. All right, thank you. Years old.
We're staying on the air. We're going down for a minute, and then that's about it. We're staying on the air until after the game. Oh! Lots of stuff.
So we're staying on for the rest of the show?
Apparently.
Then I'm just going to go off
Yeah.
But what I did worked. Yay.
8:38 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP Hour 3 of Mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. Time to welcome in Congressman Troy Carter as we do every Tuesday at this time, and I'm told we're actually going to be on the air the entire time. Congressman Carter, good morning. Welcome back. How are you, sir?
Good morning. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Doing very well. I thought we were going to have some tower work interfere with our conversation, but apparently that's going to happen later on in the day, so we are good to go. I got to talk with Dr. Sean Wilson this morning from DOTD here in Louisiana, and he couldn't be happier about infrastructure passing. Give us your quick take.
Man, I am ecstatic. I'm ecstatic because now we have an opportunity to address issues that have been plaguing our state for a very long time. Our crumbling infrastructure is a real issue. This is not just political talk. This is not rhetoric used to influence or to advance a measure. This is real.
Mm-hmm.
And when you talk to professionals throughout the state, and I'm glad you had a chance to talk to Dr. Sean Wilson, the Secretary of Department of Transportation Development, who is probably the single most learned person as it relates to every square inch, every square mile of this state and all of the issues. I mean, he can spit this stuff out verbatim.
Yeah.
And he knows that this is going to give us the shot in the arm to start to fix those things that are so desperate need of repair.
Yeah, and there's a lot. We've got over a $14 billion backlog statewide, and in my conversation with Dr. Wilson, I did ask him, how much does a bridge cost? Because we're getting $1 billion over the next 5 years for bridge repair and building, and, well, like a new Mississippi River Bridge would eat up most of that, but it's something that we now have a window of opportunity to actually take advantage of, rather than continuing to kick the can down the road, and construction costs have never gone down in the history of man. So what's $14 billion today is only going to be more tomorrow. So this is a good thing. Looking at, let's start with the infrastructure stuff, or the roads and bridges first before we get into some of the other stuff. Are there particular projects within your district that you would like to see prioritized with this money?
Yeah, there are a lot. I mean, if you go through the 2nd Congressional District, there are a plethora of needs throughout. And so what I'll be doing in short order is sitting with the Secretary to go over. And the good thing about this is the state does a pretty good job with creating the formulas that are necessary to determine how do we get the most bang for our buck. Some of this is matching dollars. Some of this is money that the state has, and the federal government becomes the top off to finish it. Some of them are new projects that are very early and just really at this point need money for studying and development while we continue to work on more. So it's not as easy as saying, well, I'm going to do that one, I'm going to do this one, I'm going to do this one. It's making sure that through this somewhat complicated formula of determining which dollars will bring us the furthest to success, to completion. And so that's going to be a part of the discussion that I'll be having with people within the Department of Transportation.
Now, that breaks down individually as well, because now you're talking about splitting out between that $1 billion for bridge repair or bridge building and repair versus $20 million for resiliency. And when you talk about the $20 million for resiliency projects, Highway 1 has got to be priority one because of the amount of impact that has on Louisiana's economy when that floods and that shuts down. So
absolutely,
that becomes priority one, but it's from a different pool of money. When it comes to the bridge money specifically, okay, I have no. This is going to be a complete lack of couth when I ask this question, Congressman.
Sure.
How do you avoid being petty? Lake Charles needs a new bridge. Lake Charles's congressman didn't vote for this. How do you avoid saying? How do you avoid saying, let's spend the money with the people that were on board first?
Well, and I think in conventional wisdom, there are a lot of people who think that that's a very fair statement. That, you know what, your representative didn't vote for it, therefore. I will tell you, from my vantage point, I care about and I love all Louisianians, be they black, white, Republican, Democrat, of any particular background, doesn't matter to me. Louisiana, I love. And so while I don't represent any part of Lake Charles, I know that there are people in Lake Charles that are really hurting. And we as a state have a responsibility to pull from all ends to try and make our state stronger. So part of that formula, those who want to be petty, I think we lead them to being petty. Mm-hmm. I'm going to fight for LAO2 because that's my first priority. But I'm not going to just turn my back and say, forget the rest of the state. I think we have to be adults. We have to be the adults in the room. We have to sit down with these numbers and say we've got a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make a difference in Louisiana. And we've got to use the exact same formula to figure out how do we strengthen our state, how do we strengthen our interstate system, how do we create transit that works and helps people. And if that means that we have to go outside and go into areas where members didn't support it, we don't have the luxury to go tit for tat, and that's not my brand of politics.
Let's move from the roads and bridges to the broadband, because this is going to be a bigger player than I think most people are giving it credit for. The broadband money, the broadband infrastructure that's going to be built with this is going to serve Louisiana very, very well. What are we looking at coming home to us from that end?
Well, we're talking about, we got a pot of $65 billion for the upgrade across safety and improvement. So how we break out the exact dollars, I think a part of that still has remained to be seen, because we have to have a full assessment on the cost, on where we go. We know that this will get us where we need to be, though. If you look at Louisiana and the underserved communities, and in our rural areas that have no broadband whatsoever, this gives us a chance to start laying fiber. These are real investments that will generate the kind of success that we so desperately need. Dr. Wilson and those guys, I know for a fact, are working on trying to formalize, what the actual dollars look like and what the division of the dollars will be throughout Louisiana as opposed to the rest of the country.
Wait, when you say $65 billion is coming back to Louisiana, or that's what was in the bill as a whole?
No, that's what's in the bill.
Okay, yeah, that's not $65 billion coming home for Vineeth Iron
No,
Guard.
that's not
okay.
it. $65 billion is what's in the bill, and we have to determine what our need is to make a proper assessment of what we use from that or what we need from that.
How do we get to that, and how do we access that? Because that's going to come across why Congresswoman Letlow was a no vote on this one, was she doesn't feel very optimistic that Louisiana is going to get a fair share of that $65 billion.
And very respectfully, and I love Representative Letlow. She's a very fine lady and a great member of Congress. But I've got to give pushback on that. You vote against it because you don't know if it's going to be enough. You know it's going to be more than what we have. And I just don't think that we should get into the minutia of well, I don't know if it's going to be enough, therefore I'm going to kick it all over. That's like having a bucket of milk in front of a cow, and you only got 3/4 of a gallon, but you really need a gallon. You say, oh, let's just kick this whole bucket over because I didn't quite get a gallon. We got to start somewhere. We've got to be practical in our thinking, and we've got to get away from the party line and start pushing forward, however incremental it might be. Any progress is progress. Any amount of fiber. Let's say we're not able to do the whole state. We're able to do 3/4. Isn't that better than nothing? You know, I have to push back on that because I'm passionate about being practical, about bringing resources to the people of Louisiana, and not falling in line with the glass is half empty, but concentrating on the glass that's half full. And this is progress. This is the biggest public works investment since Dwight Eisenhower created the interstate system in 1956. Man, this is huge.
It is. It is huge. And I hear where you're saying it's just her take on the ROI. I respect her take on the ROI as well.
I respect her take too because I respect her.
Right.
And but I'll tell you, just in a general sense, there's absolutely zero disrespect. In fact, I say it with the greatest amount of respect because I think she's an incredible person, and I think she's an incredible leader. I think in this case, we may have it off a little bit because you don't know if it goes the full amount. Do we not go to as much as it takes us? I think we travel this road as far as we can, and we lay as much fiber as we can, and we run out. At least the people that we started with will have it, and then we'll build on that. We'll continue. This is not a one-and-done piece of legislation. Whatever we fall short on, we just work on it in the next piece of legislation. But I believe, for Louisiana's purposes, every statistic I've heard is we have more than enough to do what we need within this $65 billion to cover the needs of Louisiana. Some people need a lot more than we do.
Yeah. We have a number of different types of terrain and different types of approaches as well. And I'm sure we'll have Vineeth Iyengar, who's kind of heading this up for the state. We'll have him back on to talk about that specifically in the very near future. Got 2 minutes left. What else in this bill really caught your eye and really will Louisiana see benefits from?
Well, one of the things that's critically important to me is, improving our energy grid. We saw what happened during Ida, where people were stuck without power as much as 3 weeks going into it, the month of August and early September, when it's the hottest time of the year. If we invest the deal has $73 billion investment, the single largest investment in clean energy transmission in American history. These upgrades will give us the opportunity. We can now go in and strengthen our power grid. Now, I want to go a lot further. Full disclosure. But what I want to do is going to take a lot more money, and that is burying our power grid underground and making sure that we have the kind of resiliency that we don't have these issues again. We're going to need to go back. That's going to take more money, admittedly. But the $73 billion that we now have gives us an opportunity to build thousands of miles of new resilient transmission lines and to do them differently, not to go back and keep building the way we always have, but to build it back better, to build it back stronger, to make sure that the people of Louisiana, we minimize the amount of suffering that they have to go through when these power lines go down. These are real dollars now on its way to the president's desk in the way of a infrastructure bill that is now in the history books as one of the largest ever, certainly the largest since 1956, and gives us the opportunity to start working today, creating jobs, creating economic development, creating resiliency, creating safety among roads and bridges that people in Louisiana travel every day, and fortifying our I-10 system, which, you can go everything from civil protection to the protection of our country with the interstate system, with the military, to what it means to everyday passerbys with school kids driving on these bridges that are in desperate need of repair. It's a good day for Louisiana.
Got 30 seconds left with Congressman Troy Carter. Do we have a timeline on the president signing this and when we'll start to see our first dollars roll into the state?
I think the president is planning to sign it when we go back in next week, and I don't know exactly when, but it'll certainly be sometime the week of the 15th before we come home for Thanksgiving. And the timeline for dollar stretching is a work in progress. Some cases are going to be earlier than others, but it's certainly going to be on the fastest track possible coming out of Washington. And then it becomes, as you know, we send resources to the states and the states and local governments have to have mechanisms to get them in action.
He is Congressman Troy Carter, joins us every week. We always appreciate the time, sir.
Thank you very much, my friend. God bless you.
Thank you. We will talk to you next week at this exact same time. We got to take a quick break. There's a lot I've got to unpack from what he had to say. I'll do that next, right here on Talk 107.3 FM. I'm just at a point where I'm not going to schedule anything for the last segment of the show on Tuesday because he triggers me I love having somebody on I disagree with regularly. It's not even a political difference of opinion. It's damn near religious, the difference of opinion. You know, he's a financial advisor. He hosts a show here on Talk 107.3 every night at 7. You have? Yeah. You started 2 weeks before the hurricane. The hurricane was August 29th. So you've been here more than 2 months. Yeah, and those streams cross a lot. So that's not a bad thing. It's just I'm done with them. That was all of them. Oops. And that was straight to the face. I wasn't doing that for just anybody. Ghost Slim or Baton Rouge Mattress are the only two I would do that with. Thank you. 856 Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. Thanks again to Congressman Troy Carter for hopping on board. Thanks again to our engineering department for keeping us on for the whole show. I thought we were going down this hour. No. Nicely done. That's going to be later in the day, by the way. After LSU basketball is over with, probably going to miss a good chunk of Dave Ramsey later this afternoon. That's the latest update when it comes to our tower work this morning. Thanks also to Baton Rouge Police Chief Murphy Paul. I intended on spending a greater piece of that conversation talking about spending money, but we really got into it with the homicide rate. I mean, obviously it's bigger news, not just the homicide rate, but the recruitment. And I hadn't intended to walk down the path of what voters in Minneapolis may have put an end to this defund the police poo-poo. And Minneapolis was ground zero for all of this. Just they had the opportunity to go to the polls and defund the police, and when the rubber met the road, they decided, no, sorry, I'm not willing to jump off that bridge. Anyway, thanks to Chief Murphy Paul for hopping on board. Thanks to Jason DeCuir for hopping on board to talk about the constitutional amendments that are on your ballot this Saturday. And thanks to Dr. Sean Wilson for talking infrastructure package as well. If I can unpack one or two things that the congressman had to say in the last segment, he wanted to push back on Congresswoman Letlow because there's $65 billion available in the infrastructure package for improving a broadband network. And his take was, if you've got 3/4 of a gallon of milk in a bucket next to a cow, you don't kick over the bucket because you don't get the full gallon. I hear what he's saying on that, and I respect it. But remember, he's coming from the standpoint that's not of a fiscal conservative. Congressman Troy Carter is not a fiscal conservative, and I don't think that would be news to anybody, especially not Congressman Troy Carter. The lens that Congresswoman Letlow is looking at, and this was kind of why I asked the congressman about being petty when it comes to the dollars coming to Louisiana. The lens that Congresswoman Letlow is looking at is the Joe Biden administration did not need Louisiana to win the presidency. They damn sure don't need Louisiana to win re-election. Didn't need you the first time, won't need you the second time. There is very little impetus for any push at all to push any dollars towards Louisiana when it's up for an open bid. When it comes to national clout, purple states are going to rule the day. Swing states are going to rule the day. States with a wealth of electoral votes are going to rule the day. Louisiana is not. From Congresswoman Ledlow's perspective, and I apologize for putting words in her mouth, but I'm sure if her people heard this, they'd be on board. She's not looking at 3/4 of a gallon in a bucket. She's looking at a few drops in a bucket and the promise of the rest of that gallon going to every other farmer on the planet. We're out of time. Fox News Rundown's next. All right, y'all, I got to get because I'm going to campus. LSU women's basketball coming your way at 11.